You've learned a lot more about January 6th. You talked to hundreds of defendants. What have you learned?
Well, first I've learned about pain.
I believe in my nephew. I am proud of him. He was just larger than life.
We wanted to come and kind of just share what really happened today.
He had never been in trouble before in his life, so this was just so overwhelming. I was sitting in my home, and I got a call from his uncle.
What did he say?
They robbed him of his hope, his will to live. They took his fight away from him.
They broke him.
They completely broke him, and they broke his heart.
It's hard to find the truth these days, and it's needed now more than ever. We've traveled the country to bring you honest, accurate reporting.
Bottom line, Laura, if they didn't want people going to the Capitol, they didn't want people even getting close to the Capitol, it never would have happened. It happened because they wanted it to happen.
No one was stopping you.
This is the government we're talking about, okay? Like, they have like nukes and F-15s. They can do whatever they want to stop average people like me.
34-year-old Roseanne Boylan was one of 4 people killed.
This was a woman who got pushed down, smothered, trampled, and then beaten.
Had this been covered at all by anyone else in the media?
No.
They named me as one of the insurrectionists that was preventing the cops from rescuing her.
Was that true?
Absolutely not. This crutch was right at my feet, and I put it above my head, and I said, in the name of Jesus, Lord, please stop this.
Jeremy was at the Capitol providing security.
I mean, he's quite literally the poster boy for the Special Forces.
When you were arrested, they never sat you down and said, is this yours?
No, because they're the same officers that recruited me on December 9th of 2020.
From Department of Homeland Security.
The same 2 guys.
These people are hiding all of this information, and judges have let them get away with that.
You could be here forever.
I will be here as long as the American people leave me here.
I'm Lara Logan with the rest of the story. Join us.
You're one of the most fierce, intelligent, best investigative reporters in the world. This series obviously took a tremendous amount of time. Why? Walk our audience through why you believe that this is the highest and best use of your time to tell this story about J6, ma'am.
Well, honestly, Steve, I happened one day across Jake Lang's documentary about the death of Roseanne Boylan. It was actually about January 6th, but he mentioned in there that he had been one of the people that had tried to save her life and that he was in solitary confinement. And I was shocked that I didn't know her story. And, you know, as a journalist, I mean, I've been a journalist for more than 35 years now, and it's like an instinct, right? The moment I heard about that, I was filled with guilt because I thought, how can a woman die on January 6th at the Capitol and nobody knows her name? That's just wrong. And then when I looked into it, and found that they had lied and said she died of an overdose, which wasn't true. And there were all kinds of cover-up stories that weren't true. I just knew I was going to tell that story. And I can honestly tell you that as I've traveled the country, telling these different stories and meeting different people, I realized that there's a complete void in the consciousness of America. People have no idea who went to the Capitol on January 6th. There's only one image out there which paints people, as violent and insurrectionists. And of course, the backup to that is the deplorable narrative that Hillary Clinton established in 2016, where if you're not a terrorist and a white supremacist, you at the very least are misogynist, racist, and homophobic, and so on and so on. But what I found was really the salt of the earth. I found America as I traveled. And that only inspired me more. I found the Aaron James, who was a Navy combat medic who deployed twice and literally stitched people together on the battlefield, who went up there when Roseanne Boylan was dying and they were trying to save her, the protesters. And he picked up a shield that was on the ground so that the protesters wouldn't be gassed, and that they would be able to work without interference. I mean, this man is facing decades in prison, okay? And his 2 younger brothers with him and his elderly stepfather. So that mother is going to lose her whole family. And, her oldest son is black, her 2 youngest sons are white. I mean, this is in telling these people's stories. I discovered inadvertently how to show people how dishonest, how fundamentally deceitful the narrative is. We know it's deceitful, but it's different when you hear it and you see it. And these people get to speak in their own words. And their stories have not been told. Their faces have not been seen, and there are people sitting in prison behind bars without being convicted of a crime, who are political prisoners who have been denied their right to a fair trial. As you know, you've covered that on this show many times, but most of the media doesn't cover it. And so, for me, there's no greater injustice than to deny people their fundamental rights for political reasons. And we all know, it's a matter of time. They've already come for you. They'll come for me. They'll come for anyone who won't surrender, who won't bow. And so, I was inspired by Roseanne Boyland. I wanted to know her, and I wanted to do justice to her as a person, not just this, this name on a page that most people had never heard of. That was just wrong to me. What we've done is put together a small team of people who are very committed, and we are working to release one episode a week on a Thursday. That will be on Twitter. It'll be, you can have it. Anybody who wants it can have it. There's no paywall because, the idea was that we wanted as many people as possible. I'm fighting to keep investigative journalism alive, really disciplined writing, scripted content. I mean, you can see we put, the investors put a lot of money behind this. It still doesn't have a corporation behind it or a news division the way I would at 60 Minutes. But this is 60 Minutes storytelling. So that's one thing. The second thing I want to do is address the injustice of what happened to Roseanne Boyland and the others around her. Not just Roseanne Boyland, Matthew Perna, who killed himself awaiting sentencing, and also Jeremy Brown, a 20-year Green Beret, who's behind bars, put there by the very men who tried to recruit him to be an informant and to snitch on the Oath Keepers right before January 6th when he had just joined. And what I want people to understand, though, is, January 6th is vast. There are so many stories that we could have told, and we may still tell more. But this is not trying to address every single aspect of January 6th. This is not we're not judge and jury here. I am a journalist. And my job is to try to tell the truth, because I truly believe the American people have been deceived, and that I don't want to convert people. I'm not trying to, convince people of anything. I'm not an attorney in a court of law trying to prove a case. And I am I am not an activist. What I believe is that when people have the truth, they do the right thing, they make the right decisions. So I want people to take that away. And then the third thing that I want to do is I want to bring these people to life. Philip Anderson is a young black man who almost died next to Roseanne Boyland. He was saved by Jake Lang, who's been sitting in prison for years now without trial. And Philip Anderson tweeted out that he was going to be in this series, and he was arrested the very next day after years, right? After years. And so we just don't know, is he being punished because they want to silence him? They don't want him speaking out? It's impossible to prove that kind of thing. But the very last thing I want people to get out of this is to learn what we learned as we embarked on this journey about how the protesters were set up, about how the American people were set up, about how the Capitol Police and Metropolitan Police, most of them were set up. There's clearly, as you watch this unfold, there was clearly an effort made to set the conditions for chaos, because in those conditions, good people get hurt, bad people do things they shouldn't, people who are witness terrible things, they go too far, they get emotional. And so all of this kind of came together. It was a perfect storm, but it wasn't an act of God or an act of nature. It was an act of men, right? Men and women in positions of great power. We can't name them or expose them all. We're just a small show, but we'll do our best to show people how they were set up.